Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today, the queen of eBay, Shelly Epperly.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Dean McMurray isn't with us today, but that's all right. We're going to continue on without him, and not having his tremendous psychic ability, we'll have to rely on Shelly's. But Shelly, you got your tarot card, so we're covered. I think we're okay.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
And that actually gives us a starting point for a conversation today, because it was an idea you came up with during the pre-show, and I thought it was a really good one. It's a topic we really haven't addressed in a long time here on this show, so I think it's long overdue to talk about it. But you brought up the question, or the concept, I should say, of destiny. I kind of contrasted it with free will. There are a couple of ways you can contrast it, I guess, but that's been a question that philosophy majors have debated for decades, perhaps even centuries. And it certainly gets its own kind of, I don't want to call it a debate, but it gets its own coverage, shall we say, within spiritual circles, because there are many people who believe pretty strongly that destiny drives who we are and what we do. And it's really just all about going with the flow of whatever's been pre-created for us. So that sounds like a good topic. I think it's about time we readdress it. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah. I'm reading Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life book.
Oh, yeah.
And she just talks about how you pick your parents, and because you need to come into this life for a certain reason to learn certain things. And so I was just like, okay, well, that's destiny. But then there's the law of attraction, where it's like, okay, I want a better job, or a relationship, or, more money, or more things, or whatever it is that you're attracting. And that seems more like free will.
Okay. Well, I think I could also throw another factor in. That's the factor of desire.
Right.
Because, regardless of whether we are desiring before we got here or after we got here, desire is desire. I'm pretty sure. I don't think it's a whole lot different in the non-physical. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's my take on it. Not having been consciously aware of non-physical as my day-to-day routine, although there is no day-to-day because there's no time. But
oh, that's funny.
Well, it's a little confusing talking about the topic sometimes. We have to keep the concept straight, but that's okay. But yeah, I mean, I've never really bought into the idea of destiny, although I've heard some interesting takes on it. I kind of get the impression that the free willers are ahead in the fourth quarter, and the destiny people are trying to catch up by modifying the concept to make it fit what the free willers like. I'm not really sure, but that's my sense. But I don't know. What I guess maybe we need to start off with, what is destiny? What does that exactly mean? Is that like your life is fixed permanently? What does that mean?
I think that is kind of what it is. It's like you came here for a certain thing. Like a quote of a book that I've read is, there's the two most important days of your life are the days is the day you were born and the day you figured out why you were born. And so I think that to some extent, that's why I said I'm just like, the chicken or the egg kind of a thing, because it's like, I know that there's reasons that I'm here for, certain people. And then I look at my dad passed away when I was a kid, and I feel like that was necessary for me to be who I am now. Okay. And so, not that I didn't love him and he wasn't a good dad, but it was just like, looking back, if I would have had a dad that was like my mom gave me a ton of freedom, and I really needed that. And if I would have had another parent trying to hold me back, or, giving me a lot of rules, I probably would have rebelled pretty hard on that. So I look at that and I think, okay, was that something that, that whole, that was meant to be, or everything happens for a reason kind of a thing? Like, is that destiny? Or at some point, did our souls have an agreement that it was just going to be for a short time? You know what I mean?
Okay. I think I understand what you're saying. I actually had a funny line to throw in, but I don't remember what it was, so I'll skip that. But
Oh, goodness.
but we have somebody in the live stream adding an interesting comment to kind of accentuate. She says, "Why would one pick abusive parents?"
Oh, I have the answer for that.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I know what my funny line was. Of course, calling it a funny line ruins it, but nevertheless, what I was going to say is, if what we have, the two of the most exciting days are the days where we're born and the days where we find out why we're here. I have a great day coming up because I haven't figured out why I'm here yet. So, I mean, that's going to be pretty exciting when that happens.
Oh, I think that people that know you would say different, though.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like, you're doing this. This is a huge influence on a lot of people.
Well, I found something that I enjoy for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I love doing this. Is this why I came here? I don't know. Maybe.
That's part of it, because you're doing it.
Okay.
I mean...
So maybe it's not so exciting a day. I don't know.
You don't have any exciting days coming up, Walt.
No, they're all dead. No, it's all behind me. It's all downhill here.
Manage those gardeners and do these podcasts. Right. You'll be fine.
Oh, God. Is that the rest of my life? Oh, my God. All right.
So the whole abusive parent thing is the example that I have. I was not raised by abusive parents. I was raised knowing that I was loved. And, I mean, my parents had their issues, obviously. My father passed away and he took his own life, and my mom had her issues. But I never felt, even through, like, my mom had some kind of messed up relationships, and she always put us kids first, which I think made a huge difference in our lives because we always knew that, we were the priority in her life. But my husband was raised by a very abusive mom. Who was physically, mentally, emotionally abusive with him. I mean, not horribly, but he can recall it like 3 or 4, knowing that he shouldn't tell his dad because he had to spend the next day with his mom, kind of a thing, like being able to reason that,
Yeah.
Which really sucks, and I hate that for him. But he took that and turned it around, and he told his mom he loved her a couple times and she never returned it. Mm-hmm. And he turned that around, and his kids, without a doubt, know how loved they are.
Okay. Well, that's
good. And he has his issues with parenting, as we all do. None of us are perfect. But like, he's there for them all the time. He's there for every event, for every milestone, and his mom was never there. So why would you pick abusive parents to come here and turn that around?
Yeah, I can kind of imagine David Strickle, the stream, David, being on the show in the guise of channeling the stream, and the stream basically saying we came here to experience the contrast.
Right.
For myself, that sounds like pretty severe contrast. I mean, I never really understood that entirely. I mean, I get the theory behind it that many people have put forward, including the stream's theory. But my position's always been, do you really have to experience deep, deep, dark, dark contrast in order to experience contrast? I mean, I guess we could kind of presume there are some people who do, just because I look at the people who are into extreme sports, for instance. Now, that's not abusive, but it's basically putting yourself out on the edge and living or dying out on the edge. And, they're adrenaline junkies. They just, they live for that. I would, run as far and as fast in the opposite direction as I possibly could, but that's not them. They actually want that. So I can certainly conceive of people wanting to select it. I just don't share their values, so I don't know why they would.
Yeah, I just think that it's like that. One of my things that I say a lot is it's all about the experiences. Like, I have a friend who right now is going through some cancer treatment, and she's just like, even though it's scary, she's going through radiation, she's having all this anxiety about it and stuff, she's still just like, me and my husband get to spend all this time together because we have to travel for my treatments. She's got her friend set up a GoFundMe. She's getting so much financial support from friends and family. She's, the town that they go to, there's all kinds of stuff to see, and they stay in this, home set up, but they get their own private. It's just like, you can take, it's how you react to the contrast, you know, and as a child, you don't really have a choice for a while, but if you can take that and turn it around, I just think that that's amazing. And I don't know, I just think that we're all here to teach and learn from each other, and you're going to teach some people and you're going to learn from other people, and that contrast, for some, that's all they know.
Okay.
They just live, you know, we all know people who just live in a state of negativity all the time. And I think that for me, I look at that.
I'm not sure how much they're into contrast at that point. Contrast means that you're experiencing both ends. People who are living in constant negativity, they're basically stuck in one end.
Right. But for me, I always equate contrast with like negativity. Like contrast is the opposite. For me, it's the opposite of love and faith and good.
Okay.
Basically.
Yeah. I think it's important to recognize that contrast actually is both the stuff we like and the stuff we don't like. I try to avoid positive and negative just because there are moralistic tones associated with that I think kind of mess the whole thing up.
I mean, yeah, you're right. It's like black and white is contrast.
Yeah.
Whether you're in the light or in the dark.
It's still contrast. You know?
Right.
If you had black without white, you wouldn't have gray. It just wouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it'd just be everything would be black, which is kind of tough to see anything. But if you have a background of some sort of severe abuse, well, Kelly actually put in a little comment. I threw it up on the screen. Mm-hmm. My mom married me off when I was 15. I mean, there's got to be a whole story behind that. So it's interesting to me, Kelly, that you raised the question, why would one pick abusive parents? I have a sneaking suspicion you have some kind of an answer for that you've developed over time. I mean, I understand why you would raise the question because it's probably something that's I would guess it's kind of haunted you. But I suspect you also have some idea of your own, of how you would answer that. So, I mean, if you're so inclined, put into the chat, you know, how you have come to understand it, what you've come to take a meaning from it. Because ultimately, I think that's really what life really is. Life is where we get to make our own choices about what it is we want to make our own choices about, whatever it is. And we can create on the fly. We can, you know, set our intention in advance. We can set our intention in advance and then change our minds halfway through. I mean, I really am a believer in free will, and I believe that free will never ends. I think there's some, there is some reason and it kind of resonates in some ways that people would make, what do they call them? Soul contracts about, you know, what they're going to do before they come into this life and how they plan for it to go. I think there's a lot to be said for that, but I think there's also something to be said for the idea that once you get here, you aren't locked in. Because, I mean, that's law of attraction, right? We know whatever you focus your attention on predominantly, strongly, build that high vibration, you're going to get it. I don't care what your soul contract says.
Yeah.
You know, so I think, I guess I'm saying, I think they can both be true. I don't think they necessarily one.
No, that's kind of how I feel too. Like, I think that there definitely is both, happening. You know, I have, oh, what did she say?
Kelly says humor and staying positive with cancer. Ooh, is how I make it. Yeah. Well, humor and staying positive, definitely. Very, no doubt about that. Yeah. She also threw up a comment earlier that said, my kids and grandkids, you know, I love them. So kind of illustrating the point that you made that someone who comes from that background has so much appreciation. They want to make it a point. You know, they want to make sure. You know, make sure the kids know. And make sure the grandkids know.
I mean, and I might get some flack for saying this. I've never been through it, but even cancer is an experience. And you can take that and do what you want with it. You can let it devastate you and defeat you, or you can turn it into something positive. And you know, even if you end up being on your way out, you can still be a totally positive, wonderful influence for people in your life and stay happy through that experience.
Yeah.
I mean, not everything's going to be happy, but, you know.
I think of these things also as opportunities.
Right.
I mean, not that I'm asking for cancer in my life, so maybe better be a little careful about how I phrase things. But anything that comes along that is the lower end of the contrast scale, the part that we don't really want a whole lot, every one of them is an opportunity. I'll go back to a story that I've been telling a lot lately. A few years back when I injured my knees and ended up using conscious creation to heal them in a time that was far shorter than what medical science said you could do. And to me, that was a challenge. Like, well, first of all, it hurt a lot, but it wasn't like I wasn't at death's door. It wasn't something like that, but It was chronic pain, and chronic pain is a big challenge. And I figured after the fact, not so much during it, but after the fact, I figured that was pretty cool that I went through that, not in the sense that I went through it, but in the sense that I got stronger as a result of it.
Mm-hmm.
I learned, I exercised a muscle that probably would not have exercised as much if I hadn't gone through that experience. So I think that's where the advantage of going through contrast is. And let's be honest, this is another thing that's come up a lot on the show. There are a lot of stories from a lot of people who've gone through some really rough times where they have soared higher than most of humanity because of the springboard that came from that really deep, dark contrast that they were in. So that's another reason to say, well, I can at least understand why somebody would want to go into the deep, dark contrast. Personally, I don't really need to fly that high, but that's okay. Some people do.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point, because I call it bouncing back when something happens that's not so great.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, practicing the law of attraction, I always say using the law of attraction to your advantage, because you're always using the law of attraction, because people are like, how do you use the law of attraction? You're using it all the time. But how do you use it to your advantage is the key. And so I just refer to it as the bounce back, because people are looking for like this ultimate life bliss. Like I'm going to get so good at this that nothing is ever going to go wrong. It's just going to be so wonderful. And I remember thinking that in the beginning of my relationship with my husband, like, when is this just going to be good all the time? That's not quite how this works. And that's what, the whole soulmate and twin flame thing. People are like, I haven't found my soulmate. Your soulmate is going to challenge you. That's what it's about,
Oh yeah.
But I've gotten to the point where when I have those lows, or a bad day, or a bad minute, or bad news, I look at, like you said, it's like I have my immediate reaction, that knee-jerk reaction of reacting to it instead of responding to it, and then I go, okay, wait a minute. Like, this is an opportunity, like you said. This is an opportunity to either look at myself, how I'm going to treat this situation, how I'm going to treat this other person, how I'm going to change, what am I going to do to make this better? And that is using the law of attraction to your advantage, is getting back into a better emotion every minute of the day.
Yeah. Kelly provided some more details. She says her mom passed away in August 2020. And she knew that Kelly knew that she was mentally ill. And Kelly told her aunt that it was like childbirth, that all the pain she lived through all went away when her mother passed.
Oh.
Which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting experience that she went through. Obviously, it was painful and a huge challenge to go through it. But interesting metaphor there, like going through childbirth. It kind of raises the question, what's the child that came out of it? What was born? Something was born. What was born? Something delicious, something delightful.
It was probably her without the influence of her mom anymore.
Okay.
I mean, our moms, most of us are primarily raised by moms, and especially in those early years, and that's a huge influence. And if you have a mom that's mentally ill and, or lashing out at you.
I didn't have a mom who was mentally ill or lashing out at me. I had a mom who was, she was supportive. Don't get me wrong. She was supportive. And like yours, she wanted to encourage freedom. Probably not as much as yours did, but she wanted to encourage it. But my mom had a very interesting trait that took me years to figure out. because I didn't know what it was. I could describe some of the characteristics to you, but I couldn't label it for a long, long time. What she had was the ability to avoid being labeled, to avoid being pigeonholed.
Oh.
She didn't ever want to be pinned down on anything, which is, it's kind of like walking with a blindfold, trying to find something, and what you experience is that you're in an empty room with no features, so you're constantly reaching out and there's nothing there.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's disconcerting. Especially, I was the eldest, so it's especially disconcerting when you're the eldest, because the eldest always gets the most experiments. So lucky us. But it gets confusing, especially if in the later years you're sitting in front of a therapist and the therapist is trying to, dig out whatever your deep, dark secrets were in the past, and you say, I don't know. I can't answer the question. I can't pin my mom down on anything. I can't point to any particular thing. If you tried to pin her down on something, she'd always find a way to basically squeak out of it. You just kind of, slip away from whatever it was. But it also meant that she didn't commit to much of anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she was committed to my dad in terms of their marriage, and she was committed to helping us grow up, but that was about it. For her own life, she was constantly trying to fix everybody else's problems.
Interesting.
It was confusing, is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was very confusing.
But it's like, to me, because I automatically want to just go to like how she was raised and what created, like, that's my analytical brain. I just always want to like know what happened.
I know something about how she was raised, just because I did know my grandfather and my grandmother, and they were ill suited for each other. They weren't bad people. She was a very intellectual person. She was one of the very first women in America to get a master's degree back in like the 1940s or something like that. Mm-hmm. So she was well in advance of her time and felt it and knew it. She felt held back by that. Whereas my grandfather was more of a blue collar type. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't work very well. I mean, they didn't hate each other or anything like that, but it was a relationship of convenience more than it was a relationship of love, I think. Mm-hmm. So that kind of laid the groundwork for my mom and my two uncles, of one where I don't even know how to describe it. It was kind of like having a home but being lost at sea at the same time, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. Like there's a home, it's got all of the structures of home, but a lot of the substance is just twisted. It doesn't really match up. It's certainly not, father knows best. It's far from that. Yeah. So yeah. It wasn't bad. I mean, it's not like she was abused or anything like that, as far as I know. It didn't. Here, this is a good way to describe what happened with my mom later on in life. After my dad passed, my dad was just shy of 11 years older than my mom, and they both passed at age 89. So my mom had 11 years on her own, and during that time, she had a couple of things go on. But the one thing that really came out that became very apparent to me was she didn't know what she liked. Or more precisely, she didn't know what she loved other than family. She could name family as individual family members as people that she loved, but it was more intellectual. In other words, if you asked her, what do you feel about something, that would stump her. She couldn't tell you what she felt about something, especially if it was something aesthetic. Mm-hmm. If there was something that you would have either an aesthetic preference for or preference against, she didn't know what to do with that question, which was really interesting. It was odd. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what to do with her answer or her lack of answer.
It almost sounds like Asperger's or something a little bit.
A little bit, yeah, except she didn't really display any other Asperger's symptoms that I knew of.
Interesting.
But, yeah, it was just one more example of how it was all very ethereal. There was nothing you could just hang on to. Mm-hmm. It was all just kind of airy-fairy, which kind of makes sense. I had it in law of attraction circles. Oh, Kelly threw up a couple of interesting things here. First, she says, I remember one day my mom started getting so stressed because she wasn't home to start dinner for her husband. Yeah. And then she says, after she passed, Kelly had a dream. She was 10 years old, and she saw her mom stopped at the age of 10 when her mom passed. That's interesting. I don't even know where to begin on that one. That's something, Kelly, you'd have to tell us, what does that mean from your perspective? I wouldn't even presume.
It kind of sounds like she stopped maturing at 10. Like that's as far as she got or something.
It seems to hint at that, yeah, but I wouldn't even want to say that much because I don't know that we have enough information to even conclude that. That's why I think Kelly's the one who actually has to conclude one way or another.
Right.
Yeah. But it just goes to show, though, I think we have gotten to a point in this culture where we're very attuned to abuses, particularly familial abuses. It's become more and more accepted that is part of the norm. That's something that a lot of people go through. Now, though, we're finally going to get to the point where we realize that it isn't so cut and dried. It isn't so black and white, that there are degrees of, call it abuse. Abuse might be a little strong. There are degrees of dysfunctionality. That might be the better way to say it.
Yeah.
And that everybody has different kinds of experiences of that. And it's going to have different impacts on every one of us. So going back to the original question that Kelly raised, why would you be selecting being raised by abusive parents? I could counter by saying, why would you select any particular parents? Because almost all have some level of dysfunctionality going on in some sense, either in themselves or in their parents, or, there's maybe some sort of a family thing going on there. There's almost always something going on there. So how do we make our decisions? I don't know what the answer is on that. I don't know, maybe we flip a coin? Metaphorically?
Well, so my husband's mom is one of, I want to say 8 or 9. There was lots of kids in that family. And it was like one of those things where mom was still having babies when the oldest child was having her first baby. So there's like aunts and uncles that are younger than the niece and nephew, or you know what I mean? And my husband's always said that there's like a middle ground, because his mom and 2 of the other siblings are right in the middle. And the older kids are all really great, awesome, were great parents and fun to be around. And then the younger couple kids were really awesome, great people. But there were like these 3 in the middle. And it's like, what happened in that time frame when those guys, because I believe the whole, you're in kind of beta mode until you're about 5 to 7. You're just learning how to behave, like being domesticated, as the 4 Agreements says.
Well, your personality is also filling out. I mean, you pretty much fill out to who you are by around age 7, don't you?
Yeah. But all that programming gets kicked in there, where that's why we don't really remember much before that, other than these significant little snapshots, and it's just like, what happened during, like, what was happening? And he's like, well, I know my grandpa was kind of a drinker, and I know a lot of the kids were scared of him. And it's just like, but we really don't know. And I mean, I guess we could like sit down and ask some of the siblings, but it just seems, inappropriate with that family. You know what I mean? Like,
okay. I don't know. Kelly threw in some more information about the situation with her mom. What she was trying to describe is that because her mom, in her dream, had stopped growing at age 10 when her own mom had passed. In other words, when Kelly's grandmother had passed, Kelly concludes that was why her own mother didn't really know how to be a mother.
Right.
Which I can certainly see. That makes some sense. Yeah. It just shows how confusing this stuff can get, though.
But I just think it's important. I think it's important to not go back there and like dig that up and hash it all up and, be in the middle of it. But I think it's important to understand those things, like to understand that her mom really didn't know how to be a mom because she lost her mom so young. And so she was just doing the best she could with what she had. And unfortunately, that wasn't very good. But you can come out of that, and then you have the free will to decide, am I going to be a better parent and a better person, or am I just going to blame my mom and, wallow around in that my whole life?
Yeah, that fits in beautifully with my own take on therapy in general, which has been a big point for me for at least the last 21 years with my wife Louise, because she's a former therapist. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I was most concerned with, where therapy was concerned even before I met my wife and since then, was, do you get out of therapy? And it was one of the reasons why I love my wife so much, because she was a no-nonsense therapist. There are a lot of therapists who will let you just keep bringing up the bill. She would say, grow or go. I'm not here to just let you, spill out your guts of all this stuff just so you can spill out your guts. So the purpose here is to improve. Mm-hmm. If you're willing to improve, I'll work with you. If you're not really willing to improve, go someplace else. Don't waste your money. Don't waste your time. And don't waste my time. This is crazy. And I like that, because ultimately, yeah, sure, it's good to know what transpired, what were the factors, what were the influences that caused X, Y, and Z to happen with ourselves, with our parents, and so on and so forth as we're growing up. But at some point, we got to let go of it. If we don't, like you say, we just keep hanging on to it, we keep replaying it, and then it becomes dominant vibration in our lives, and that doesn't serve us at all. That actually works against our needs. Right. So to me, the whole thing is, what's it take for us to let go of it? And if that includes revisiting it and understanding it, fine, as long as that leads to letting go of it. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think about it, we're all doing the best we can. Like what I did 10 years ago, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I really wasn't doing it very good then, but now I'm doing it better. And in 10 years, I'm going to look and go, wow, 10 years ago, I didn't even know about the stuff I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that's one thing that I have to think about when I'm having issues with people, is they're just doing the best they could in that situation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even if that was trying to be vindictive or be, lie or whatever, that's what they know at that moment, and that's the best way they could handle that situation. So,
which is a letting go strategy as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
That's exactly what that's for. It's a way of saying, you know what? I'm okay with them making these big mistakes, because what the heck? That's what they knew how to do. They didn't know anything else. They're learning since then, or they're not, or they moved on or whatever. But, change happens.
And with that, because so many people say, well, if I forgive someone for their behavior, does that mean I just keep getting stomped on by them? No, you can forgive someone, but you don't forget what they did. You don't keep putting yourself in that path. You forgive them because they were doing the best they could. Mm-hmm. That's all they could do. And then the next time that comes around, you can say no. You can say I'm too busy. You can say I can't have you in my life anymore. You don't have to be a jerk about it. You can just, they're going to have their own experience with that. But anyways, yeah.
And the simple fact is, Kelly put it very nicely in her last line. She says, now I did do the blame game for some years. Well, that's the option. Mm-hmm. We can either get involved in that blame game or we can let it go. And we've all gotten into that trap of blaming, which of course just comes right back and haunts us. It doesn't do anything to the other person. Isn't that interesting? The blame doesn't actually touch them. It only touches us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once we come to realize that, but once we come to realize it, life gets better, which is a good thing. Well, assuming that we let go of it. If we don't let go of it, life gets worse.
Yeah, one of the lessons I've been working with lately is when something drives me crazy, like just irritates me about another person, that's really something that irritates me about me. And so that's a really hard pill to swallow, because you're just like, oh, they're so annoying. And it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, right.
Do I do that? And then when you start digging in a little bit, you're like, ooh, maybe I do. I got to pay attention to that. That's a hard one. That's like the blame game on steroids, I think.
I'll see Nasha saying hello. So hello, Nasha. Glad you could join us today. And then getting back to the conversation with Kelly, she says, today a friend said she couldn't believe what someone did to her. I said, can you accept that they did it? Yeah. That's the challenge, isn't it? And it's well done. Because the more that her friend can't believe that someone did it to her, guess what's going to happen? The more that they're going to get people doing things to them. I mean, that's just, it's one of those annoying things about the law of attraction. It doesn't just deliver what we want. It also delivers what we focus on that we don't want. It's quite consistent. And I think that's really the biggest challenge. I mean, if we come into this life having certain, destiny, as we're calling it, laid out, certain, precepts, certain, assumptions about how our lives are going to go, fine, but we still have the choice about what we're going to do with it once we get here. If we're going to deal with contrast, fine. We still have the choice of what we're going to do with it once we start experiencing it. And it's really the same thing over and over again. What do you want out of your life? Right. I don't care whether you come in with destiny or free will or, the White House is in charge. I don't really care. It doesn't matter which approach you take. The final analysis, it all comes down to one thing. What do you like? What don't you like? And which one are you going to give your attention to? Yeah. That's the great lesson of the law of attraction. It's the simplest concept in the world, but it's great because for the first time we understand we are in control. We didn't realize it. We didn't realize we were sitting at the steering wheel, but we were. And all we had to do is decide what we're going to give our attention to. Yeah. All. I mean, I make it sound so simple. Yeah, exactly. If it's so simple, why don't you stay focused on what you want? Yeah, that's the problem. But that's what we're all working on.
But it's but it's really not a problem because it just creates better opportunities for us to get better at it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's all about exercising that muscle. No doubt about that. And I even announced on the show on Friday, David Strickle used to, for a while he was doing the show here with us. And he has his, he is one of these people who's able to channel. So he's like an Abraham. He channels the stream of David. And he has his own group on Facebook and he has this program called TIA Boot Camp. And I can't remember for the life of me what TYA stands for. Trust Your Abundance or something like that. But his boot camp is basically a way of just kind of diving in and working that muscle and just learning all the different ways you can learn that muscle. And I announced on Friday, I finally committed I was going to take the boot camp. So it was time to take myself to the next level. Yeah. And WG said she was going to do it with me, even though she's already been through it. So that's kind of fun too. But
very cool.
I guess I announced it for two reasons. One reason was when you announce it on the podcast, well, then you're kind of committed. So you actually have to do it. You can't back out. Yeah, there you go. So I've got the first call scheduled with David, tonight actually. And I think the first meeting of the boot camp is tonight too. So it's going to be a busy night. But even more than that, to me, it's a way of recommitting to myself that I want to keep growing. I mean, I see so many people in my life and outside of my life who just don't do that. For whatever reasons, for a variety of reasons, maybe they just aren't into the spiritual stuff that we're into, whatever, but they're not really trying to grow a whole lot, or maybe the forms of growth they're taking aren't forms that I would choose, let's put it that way. And I just want to keep getting better and stronger and, better at doing this stuff, better at making conscious choices, better at focusing my attention and keeping my focus where I want to keep it, but without effort. Because I think we usually do it the first few times we're trying to do it with some effort because we don't know how to do it. Well, the muscle isn't strong yet. Right. But over time, we're trying to get to the point where it's just second nature, just kind of easy to do.
Yeah. It's a change, and change is always takes some effort, but even in that change, there definitely has to be some joy there.
Oh, God, yes. Otherwise, you'll just go into a negative spiral, no doubt about that.
Because I've seen so many people on, different Facebook groups, and they're like, I'm trying to attract a relationship, and I've been trying to do these affirmations, and I've been doing them every night and every morning, and it's just not working. And it's just like, how much fun are you having doing them? Like, is that fun? Are you looking forward to those visualizations and writing those affirmations? And if you don't, then that's not the path of reprogramming for you. Like we all, some of us would rather just look at pictures. Some of us would like to listen to music. Some of us want to go tour the house or go to, a speed dating thing or, you know what I mean? Like you have to find those things that make you happy. You can't, just because you hear that something worked for somebody, you can't put your nose to the grindstone and decide that's how you're going to do it. And,
It's funny that when you said that, the phrase that came to my mind was the path of least resistance, which we normally associate with, how we're dealing with other people. But in this case, it's the path to our own least resistance, the resistance that we have the least amount of, and what it takes to let go of our resistance. That path, that's the truly desirable path to be on, because that's the abundant life right there.
Well, that whole Abraham, for some reason, it's really easy for me to picture it, but rowing the boat upstream or letting go, putting the oars in the boat and just going downstream. It's like, yeah, but what if there's rapids? What if I get stuck on shore? Yeah. Oh, you're going to get stuck on shore. You're going to hit rapids, but it's going to be so fun when you're really floating and going and having fun. And every once in a while you're going to hit a rock and have to patch up your boat, or you can just stay here and row upstream and see how far you get and struggle and get tired and, yeah, that one really resonates for me.
I got to give kudos to Kelly because she says she's outside gardening. And of course, my wife and I run a gardening business. So well done, Kelly. Way to go. I'll also mention, by the way, I'm not a gardener. I don't know if I've said that, but I actually don't enjoy gardening. The last thing you want to see me do is get out into the yard. I mean, I have the black thumb in the family. Louise has the green thumb. We just leave it like that. I'm good at running a business, so I do that. But, I'm not a gardener, but I say good on you if you are a gardener.
Yeah.
Because, you're grounded. You're dealing constantly with the earth. You're outdoors. Look what she says. I'm working on healing gardens. Well, yeah. Just working on gardens is healing all by itself, but coming up with a garden that is itself a healing garden, that's even better. That's
right.
Cool. Yeah. There's so much benefit of, that activity. So I can't say I envy gardening because I don't really want to be a gardener, but I appreciate what benefit they get out of it. Mm-hmm. I see it in our crew's faces every time I go visit them to give them supplies or something like that. They're dirty, they're exhausted, they're breathing heavy and so forth, but their eyes are like on fire because they're so excited about what they're doing.
Yeah, my sister-in-law has a huge garden and she's just like, every spring, she's just like, her whole Facebook is just full of garden and harvest and starts and, baby grapes and flowers. And I'm just like, You go, girl.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll come by and get some fruit every once in a while. Her veggies or whatever. But yeah, so I get that. But it's great that Kelly, like when she said that, well, why would we choose abusive parents? Look at how great she's doing. Look how great she's done. It's like that. I don't think that you need abusive parents to get into that mode or whatever of life, but our souls look at, okay, what lessons do I want to learn? How do I want to expand this to be better? And that's how they choose. That's what I believe.
I love this. She apparently lives on the flight path to her local airport. She says, I just made a flamingo-shaped garden for the airplanes that fly over so they can see this flamingo in her garden as they're flying over. That's great.
Have you seen that guy? And he lives in like Chicago or something, and he lives right in the flight path, and he has like a big building in the city or whatever, and he wrote, "Welcome to Philadelphia" or something like that on the roof where people that were flying in would
just to mess with their heads.
Joke, yeah. I don't remember where I saw that, but I was just like, oh, that is so good. That is so funny. Because you could just picture people like waking up like, okay, the flight's almost over, then looking down. Welcome to Philadelphia. Wait. I'm sure the flight crew is used to all of that, but I just think that's hilarious when she said that about the flamingo. That's what it reminded me of.
Oh, she said she's outside an Air Force base. That explains it. Yeah, well, now instead of doing it for commercial flight, she's actually messing with the heads of people in the military. So, okay, good. Dean would appreciate that, I think. I think he'd like that sense of humor. Oh, that's funny. Well, I don't know. Have we addressed the question sufficiently? Have we actually answered?
We talked a lot about it. I don't know if we answered it. I think it's just a combination. There's no black or white with that.
Yeah, I think that's true. There is no black or white there because it's all grays. It's all gray areas. And I think there's actually a little bit of a lesson, I guess you could call it. The fact that there are gray areas and that we still make our selections within those gray areas basically means that our selections are indicating what not just our preferences are, but what kind of life we want. Mm-hmm. Even if it's not one that would be, one that you would pick just by sitting down and consciously thinking it out. Oh, it would be great if I had this. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, we are all selecting whether, I don't care if you call it subconsciously or if you call it just, old thought patterns that you've allowed to continue, however you want to look at it. We're creating our lives through these choices that we made. And in doing so, we are creating the destiny. We are creating those situations. So I think it's probably the hardest part about being a conscious creator is coming to terms with that. On the other hand, I think it's the greatest opportunity. Mm-hmm. Because really what we're saying is, okay, that's where I came from. Where do I want to go from here? That's my starting point. Where's my next stop point? Where's my next milestone?
Yeah.
That's really what it comes out. Oh, and Kelly wants us to push her page. She says she has a page called "I Saved My Life, Not My Boobs." So absolutely, we'll check that one out.
I'm assuming that's Facebook.
I think it is Facebook page. Kelly, well, she's on Facebook, so I'm imagining it's a Facebook page. She's coming to us through a Facebook page or a Facebook group right now. But yeah, absolutely. And good for you for turning it into something that other people can benefit from. It's not an easy thing to do, so good for you. Really, really good.
Yep. Yep.
I'm thinking also the contrast, or not the contrast, but the destiny versus free will thing. Well, I guess that is contrast. But the destiny versus free will question also has sort of an adjunct with it, doesn't it? In that when we set ourselves up for the idea of destiny or set ourselves up for the idea of free will, we're setting a parameter. We're setting a boundary, if you will, and we're defining ourselves from that. Whichever side you're taking, it doesn't really matter. We're still defining ourselves based on that.
Right. Like if you're picking destiny and you're just set on that, you're just going to go with what happens because that's your destiny. Mm-hmm. If you're going with, manifesting or free will, you're going with, hey, this is what's happening to me right now, but I can get what's over there if I change what's happening right now.
So I guess the point is it becomes an option. Am I going to go default or am I going to go conscious creation? Which way do I want to go? Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with either one. They're both legitimate choices. But I think that's what the whole discussion actually outlines. When we're saying that life is mainly our destiny, we're basically choosing the default path. When we're saying that my life is basically dependent upon my free will, we're choosing the conscious creation path. And when we're choosing something in the middle, well, we're somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. But really, that's what it is. It's how much time are we going to give to, oh my goodness, look at this. She said, I had triple negative breast cancer, stage 3, BC with 27 nodes removed, 3 positives. And they gave me 5 years, but I'm going on year 13. Well done. Well done. Nice. Oh my goodness. Talk about climbing out of adversity and turning it into a positive. You ought to write a book on pivoting, Kelly. You're good at it.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. So there's somebody who definitely didn't buy into the destiny of cancer at all.
Right. Yeah, and took that 5 years and turned it into a challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say when I'm doing tarot readings, so I typically do a 7-card reading, and it includes the past, present, and future. Uh-huh. and then it includes a lesson, blocks, challenge, and a summation card. So when I always start with the past, present, and future, and then, I always back it up with that future can change if you use the lesson, learn from the blocks, and take on the challenge. Because, a lot of people think, oh, well, that's what my future is. So I get, and it's like, no, there's lessons and challenges and blocks here that are happening in your life. And if you pay attention to those and work them, you can change that future if that's not what you want, I mean, the future in the reading isn't always like bad, but I'm just saying, like, if there's something coming up and they're like, oh, I don't want to lose my job, or I don't want to, break up with that person or whatever. It's like, well, there's these other things that you can do, or you can just sit and wait for it,
And both Abraham and the stream, in their different ways, make it clear that they don't read the future. They don't do that, partly because they really don't want to impose any of their choices for us. They want us to go with our choices. But partly because the future changes. I mean, it changes moment by moment. And I don't mean that it changes in the sense that every moment is different from the previous moment. I mean, the possibilities change. They're all possibilities in the future. None of them are necessarily going to be set in stone. Any of them can play out, and it's entirely dependent on what we choose to focus our attention on. Now, if we choose to focus our attention on our destiny, well, then yeah, it's going to be pretty well mapped out. But if we choose to focus our attention on other stuff that we choose instead, we're going to get more of what we choose instead. So, again, it comes down to what are we choosing to focus our attention on?
Yeah,
as usual.
For sure. As usual.
We keep coming back to that same thing over and over again.
When is that going to change? When are we going to get a new thing to talk about?
It's funny because I raised the point last week a couple times about how astrophysicists have been challenged about their understanding of the law of gravity, because they, when they're studying what happens with galaxies and pulsars and dwarf stars and all this other kind of stuff, they're doing it through telescopes that are able to take data, telescopes that are able to take data, and then they take that data and they draw inferences from them, and they start piecing together what's going on out there in the cosmos. Mm-hmm. But they're working from a very limited data set. And in that data set, even with the limitations there, they apply what they know. They apply the law of gravity, among other things. And to their consternation, they're finding that what the law of gravity predicts is going to happen with these different celestial bodies in relationship to each other doesn't actually play out. In other words, the article that I saw, it was at a website called livescience.com. The article described how galaxies spin faster than what scientists predict they should be able to spin at, based on what their relative gravitational fields are compared to each other, or things fly apart faster than they should, or objects come together faster than they should. I mean, the cosmic speed limit is constantly being violated. And they don't have a good solution for it. They've even come up with, I think they call it the modified law of gravity, but the modified law of gravity doesn't work either.
Well, the thing is it's a modified law of everything.
Yeah. So that's what makes this whole concept of law of attraction so fascinating, because as both Abraham and the stream have said, it's the one law that truly applies everywhere in the universe at all times. Mm-hmm. Even more so than gravity.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really kind of wild. So I think that's why we keep coming back to it. That's why we keep talking about it.
Yeah, well, the law of gravity for me is like pure science, and the real laws of the universe of like law of attraction and law of prosperity and law, all of that, that's universal. Mm-hmm. The law of gravity isn't universal. It's just,
well, it's literally a local law.
It's galaxy.
It's even more local than that. It's usually applicable to objects that are moving relatively slowly compared to each other. When they start speeding up compared to each other, the law of gravity starts to fall apart. It doesn't work so well in terms of being able to predict what's going to happen next. That's one of the things that the astrophysicists are trying to come to terms with. Whereas law of attraction works at all times. Vibration always works the way vibration is expected to work. So I'm looking forward to the day when pure science actually starts adopting some of these ideas about vibration that we talk about. I see Todd saying hello. Hello, Todd. Thank you for dropping by. And Kelly's saying thank you for this live session. It was wonderful So have a beautiful day. So, and thank you, Kelly, for all your input. You gave us some really good stuff. That was great. Really, really good. By the way, I want to encourage other people, including those who can't listen or watch on the live stream, because overwhelmingly most people who are listening to this are listening to the recording after the fact. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly great. But it does kind of make you think like, well, I can't really be a part of the conversation. Well, you can, actually. There's a little bit of a tape delay going on, but it can be done. And that's why we created the LOA Today app, for instance. It gives you a couple forms in there where you can actually send in a question, send in a comment, and have it be included in an upcoming episode. In fact, there have many times, Shelly, been episodes where we did the entire episode based on a single email that was sent in. Mm-hmm. The email was just so engaging. It was just so, getting right to the core of things that we just kept talking about it for the whole thing. Oh, listen to this. Todd wrote something. He says, I've been listening to this book talking about all of this quantum entanglement stuff. I can share the book here. Oh, yeah. I've been listening to an Audible, so it's very similar to what you're speaking about. Cool. I like
Interesting.
That. Yeah. We're running out of time for this particular show. We only have about 2 or 3 minutes left, but, we're on here 5 days a week, and Shelly's on here with me every Tuesday. So, join us and next time that Shelly's on, tell us more about the book so we can talk about some more. He says, what does he say here? I'm listening to Codename God by Mani Bahamik. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that. Narrated by Stefan Rudnicki, Ben Kingsley on his Audible app. Very cool. All right. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Quantum entanglement, we could do a whole show on that one too. That's one of those really crazy things. That's science trying to make sense out of vibration. That's what that really is. Mm-hmm. And it's as far as they've gotten with it. And how far they've gotten has been pretty cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that's how far they've gotten.
Well, the whole gravity thing, it just sounds like they're trying to apply what we know about gravity in our galaxy to what's going on in other galaxies or storms or planets or whatever. And it's just not going to happen because we're in our own vortex or whatever here. You can't apply that everywhere.
Yeah, I agree with you, but they haven't come to that viewpoint yet. They're still kind of locked into.
Can't they? If they just talk to us, we can tell them what's going on.
I don't think the problem is talking to us. I think the problem is listening to us. I think they just
okay.
Yeah, that's what the problem is. But they'll come around eventually. We know that. It's just a matter of time, which is an illusion anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been fun. Thank you very much for spending your time with us, Shelly. We really appreciate that. We'll look forward to having me. We'll look forward to having Dean join us again next week when 2 will become 3 once again. But this has been good. This has been really good. And you kind of have reaffirmed for everybody why it was that you were on the show in the first place and how good it is to have you back a second time.
Aw, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, you have a lot to contribute, and it's really a good thing. So thank you very much. Thank you all also to the people in the live stream who are sharing, particularly to Kelly with all the wonderful stuff she was sharing there. Thank you to all of our live streamers without whom we wouldn't have a podcast. And I also want to remind people that Jackie Gates joined Cindy Chavez and me on Wednesdays. Wednesdays is becoming quite the show to watch. The vibe there is explosive. If you haven't listened to Jackie's take on acting as if, you want to do that. So check it out. And with that, we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.